The Enemies Project is the largest and most complex work that I've done to date. I conceived of it while I was a visiting artist at the Archie Bray Foundation in Montana. I wanted to understand how people recover from major life tragedies, and with that goal, I decided to seek out places that had seen violent conflict, and then try to bring together people who had once been enemies and photograph them with each other. Big ideas are easy, but there's nothing straightforward about trying to make something like that happen in the real world. I spent months calling and emailing people who I thought might be able to help, and I took a trip to DC to meet with professionals who worked in the area of peace negotiations. Bringing together people who once considered themselves enemies is not easy. As a foreigner, you can't simply walk into a community and expect people to open up to you. While I was working on Enemies, I built a community of followers through a blog that I kept while I was traveling, and later through crowdfunding efforts to find more backers. As I met people, heard stories, and took photographs, I shared the work I was creating with the community that supported and followed me. I began the Enemies Project with a simple vision of a set of portraits of the people who were once or still were enemies. But the photographs I was taking became just one part of what I began to realize was the actual artwork of the project. For me, the entire process of what I was doing, bringing people together, hearing their stories, trying to understand their struggles, all of this was the art of the project. A close artist friend of mine observed that my entire life had become a piece of art. When I returned to the U.S. after spending 6 months on the border region of India and Pakistan, I found myself struggling with PTSD, and the shape and mood of the art I was creating changed. The complexity of people's stories shaped the work that I made, and I began creating works that were more abstract and reflected my own emotions as I tried to process painful and sometimes nightmarish stories I had spent months listening to. One of the works I created was a series of architectural projections in which I projected the faces of people from Kashmir on unseen and abandoned spaces in the U.S. to help people understand how Kashmiris felt about being abandoned by the world community. As I gave talks, had shows, and made more work, I started to rediscover how many of the people I'd met had actually moved beyond their tragic experiences and had shared stories that were positive and even uplifting. Drawing on the massive amount of photographs and videos I'd taken during the project, I created a projection exhibit for a talk that looked at the range of people I'd met and places I'd been as a way to help people contextualize their place in the world. After that, I took that material and built an interactive version that was triggered when two people standing in front of the exhibit reached out to touch one another. The entire experience was built to bring people together around the idea that we are more like one another than we are different. So, after 4 years, I felt like I'd finally found some kind of answer to the question I'd had in the beginning of the project, but it wasn't simple. The answer was about humanity and humility, connection and community, diversity and similarity. More than anything, the answer came out of building relationships across divides and finding a deep understanding of all the things we share with others who may seem to be our foes.